What if everything you believed about success, failure, and human worth was completely wrong? What if the person scrubbing dishes in your restaurant's kitchen had a Harvard MBA, and the janitor everyone ignored held the key to saving your entire business? This is the true story of Marcus Sterling, a man who thought he knew everything about his empire, until he became invisible in his own company and discovered that sometimes the greatest revelations come from the places we're taught never to. Look. Marcus Sterling adjusted his Italian silk tie as he gazed out from the 42nd floor of the Sterling Tower in downtown Chicago. At 34, he commanded a restaurant empire worth $300 million, inherited from his grandfather who built the first Sterling's family restaurant in 1952. The city sprawled beneath him like a chessboard where he moved pieces worth millions with casual phone calls. "Sir, the quarterly reports show the Detroit location is still underperforming," his assistant Jennifer announced, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she approached his mahogany desk. "Profits down 18%, employee turnover at 67%, customer complaints increasing monthly." Marcus barely glanced up from his smartphone, where he was reviewing stock portfolios. The Detroit location was just numbers on a spreadsheet, one of 47 restaurants across the Midwest. Fire the manager, bring in someone competent. These people just don't understand efficiency. But Jennifer hesitated, something unusual for his typically composed assistant. "Sir, we've replaced 3 managers in 8 months. Perhaps the issue runs deeper than management." The suggestion irritated Marcus. He had graduated summa cum laude from Wharton, had turned his inherited 20 restaurants into 47 profitable locations through strategic expansion and cost optimization. He understood business better than anyone. The failure of one location was simply poor execution by inferior employees. "Jennifer, I didn't build this empire by making excuses for underperformance. Schedule a corporate audit for Detroit next month. If they can't meet our standards, we'll close the location and redirect resources to profitable ventures." That evening, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by awards and photographs from charity galas where he posed with politicians and celebrities. His phone buzzed with congratulatory messages about Sterling Enterprises being named Restaurant Chain of the Year by Business Weekly magazine. Yet something about Jennifer's words lingered in his mind like an uncomfortable truth he couldn't dismiss. He walked to his floor-to-ceiling windows, observing the city lights below. Each light represented someone's life, someone's struggle, someone's dreams. But from this height, they appeared as insignificant dots in an endless urban landscape. Marcus had spent his entire adult life viewing the world from this distance, managing people as statistics, treating employees as replaceable resources, measuring human worth through productivity metrics. The next morning brought unexpected news. His older brother David, the only person who ever challenged Marcus's perspectives, called from London where he managed Sterling Enterprises' European expansion. "Marcus, I heard about Detroit. Before you close it, consider something our grandfather once told me. A business is only as strong as the people who believe in it. Maybe the problem isn't the location or the employees. Maybe it's that no one there feels valued enough to give their best." Marcus dismissed his brother's sentimentality. "David, grandfather's wisdom worked in 1952. Modern business requires data-driven decisions, not emotional appeals." "Then gather the data that matters," David replied. "Spend time with the people whose lives depend on these decisions. You might discover information your spreadsheets can't provide." After hanging up, Marcus stared at the Detroit financial report spread across his desk. The numbers told a story of decline, falling revenues, increasing costs, deteriorating customer satisfaction. But for the first time, he wondered about the human stories behind those numbers. Who were these people failing to meet his standards? What circumstances led to such consistent underperformance? An idea began forming in Marcus's mind. Risky, unconventional, but potentially revealing. What if he could observe the Detroit location without the artificial politeness that always surrounded his official visits? What if he could see his business through the eyes of someone who wasn't the owner's son, someone whose opinion didn't matter to corporate executives? He had heard about undercover boss programs, corporate leaders disguising themselves to understand their organizations from ground level. The concept had always seemed like publicity stunts to Marcus, but now it presented an intriguing opportunity for genuine intelligence gathering. Marcus called his head of security, Thomas McKay, a former FBI agent who handled sensitive corporate investigations. "Thomas, I need you to create a complete identity transformation. Background story, documentation, everything necessary for someone to work entry-level at our Detroit location without anyone recognizing me. Thomas raised an eyebrow. Sir, that's quite an undertaking. May I ask the purpose? Research, Marcus replied curtly. I want to understand why Detroit is failing by observing operations from the inside. How long would you need? 2 weeks for a bulletproof identity, sir. But Mr. Sterling, are you certain about this approach? The environments at failing locations can be quite harsh, especially for someone unaccustomed to manual labor. Marcus had never performed manual labor in his life. His hands were soft from manicures, his back unconditioned for standing long hours, his palate accustomed to five-star cuisine rather than employee meal leftovers. But his analytical mind was intrigued by the challenge of gathering first-hand intelligence about his business operations. Make it happen, Thomas, and ensure absolute confidentiality. No one at corporate, including Jennifer, can know about this project. Over the following 2 weeks, Marcus underwent a complete transformation. Thomas's team created Michael Stone, a 40-year-old divorced construction worker from Gary, Indiana, recently laid off and desperate for any employment. They altered Marcus's appearance with subtle makeup techniques, changed his hairstyle, provided him with worn clothing from thrift stores, and coached him on working-class mannerisms and speech patterns. The hardest part was suppressing his natural authority. Marcus was accustomed to commanding rooms, making decisions, having people defer to his expertise. As Michael Stone, he would need to follow orders, accept criticism, and blend invisibly among employees he had never considered as individuals. Standing in his bathroom mirror the night before traveling to Detroit, Marcus barely recognized himself. Gone was the confident executive in tailored suits. In his place stood an ordinary man with calloused hands courtesy of Thomas's makeup artist, tired eyes, and shoulders that carried the weight of financial desperation. For the first time in his privileged life, Marcus Sterling was about to discover what it meant to be invisible, dispensable, and judged solely on his willingness to perform society's most overlooked work. The Greyhound bus pulled into Detroit's downtown terminal at 6:47 a.m. on a gray October morning. Marcus, now Michael Stone, stepped onto the cracked pavement carrying a duffel bag containing everything his new identity owned. 3 changes of work clothes, a cheap cell phone, and $43 in cash. The contrast to his usual private jet arrivals couldn't have been more stark. Detroit's Sterling Family Restaurant occupied a corner lot on 8 Mile Road, surrounded by empty storefronts and abandoned buildings that told the story of American industrial decline. As Marcus approached the restaurant he technically owned, he saw it through different eyes: peeling paint on the exterior walls, parking lot potholes that would scrape expensive cars, windows that hadn't been professionally cleaned in months. Inside, the morning rush was controlled chaos. Servers weaved between tables carrying multiple plates. Cooks shouted orders over sizzling grills, and a steady stream of customers created constant noise and movement. Marcus had visited this location twice during official corporate tours, but those visits involved prepared presentations, carefully staged interactions, and problems temporarily hidden from executive view. You, Michael Stone? A woman in her 50s approached him, wiping her hands on a grease-stained apron. I'm Linda Martinez, kitchen manager. Corporate said you're starting today as dishwasher. Ever worked food service before? Marcus had rehearsed his backstory extensively. Some experience, ma'am. Construction mostly, but that's dried up. Needs steady work. Linda studied him with the sharp eyes of someone who had evaluated hundreds of potential employees. Construction to dishwashing's a big step down. You gonna stick around when something better comes along, or am I wasting my time training you? The question contained an assumption that dishwashing was somehow lesser work, temporary employment for people between better opportunities. Marcus had never considered that perspective, that his restaurant's entry-level positions were seen by employees as stepping stones rather than careers worthy of investment and development. I'll work hard for you, ma'am. Need this job. Linda nodded slowly. All right then. Roberta will show you the station. Pays $11.50 an hour, paid weekly. No benefits until 90 days if you last that long. Most don't. She led him to the dish pit, a cramped corner behind the kitchen where stacks of dirty plates, glasses, and utensils created towering obstacles. The air was thick with steam and the smell of grease mixed with industrial soap. Roberto Gonzalez, a compact man in his 30s, looked up from loading a commercial dishwasher. "New guy?" Roberto extended a wet hand. "Roberto, been here 2 years. This your first restaurant job?" "Yeah," Marcus replied, genuinely intimidated by the mechanical complexity of the commercial dishwashing system. "Okay, hermano, here's how we survive. See this machine? She's temperamental like my ex-wife. Water temperature has to be exactly 180, or she'll break down. These plates stack like this. Glasses go in these racks. Silverware gets soaked first in this solution." Roberto's explanation was patient and detailed, treating the dishwashing process with professional seriousness. He demonstrated proper techniques, explained efficiency shortcuts, and warned about common mistakes that could cause equipment breakdowns. Marcus realized this man possessed genuine expertise that had never been recognized or valued by corporate evaluations. "Most important thing," Roberto continued, "is keeping up with the rush. Lunch rush hits at 11:30, dinner rush at 6. Kitchen runs out of plates, servers get angry, customers wait longer, everyone suffers. We're the foundation that keeps everything working." The metaphor struck Marcus profoundly. He had always viewed dishwashers as the least important employees, easily replaceable and requiring minimal skill. But Roberto was explaining how their work connected to every aspect of restaurant operations: customer satisfaction, server efficiency, kitchen productivity, overall profitability. By his first lunch rush, Marcus understood why Detroit's employee turnover was 67%. The work was physically brutal, mentally exhausting, and emotionally demoralizing. His hands, despite Thomas's artificial calluses, quickly developed real blisters from handling hot plates and scrubbing stubborn food residue. His back ached from constant bending and lifting. The steam left him perpetually damp and overheated. But more challenging than the physical demands were the social dynamics. As a dishwasher, Marcus was invisible to most employees. Servers rushed past without acknowledgement. Cooks treated him like a machine that processed dirty dishes, and managers addressed him only to point out deficiencies. "Stone, these glasses still have lipstick stains." Linda's voice cut through kitchen noise. "Do your job properly, or we'll find someone who can." The public criticism stung in ways Marcus had never experienced. In his executive life, feedback came through private meetings, diplomatic language, and respectful dialogue. Here, mistakes were announced to everyone, competence was questioned publicly, and human dignity seemed secondary to operational efficiency. During his 15-minute break, Marcus sat in the employee parking lot next to Roberto, who was sharing homemade tamales his wife had packed for lunch. "You married, Michael?" Roberto asked, offering him food despite knowing him for only 5 hours. "Divorced," Marcus replied, maintaining his cover story. "Kids?" "No, you?" Roberto's face lit up. "3 kids. Maria's 15, wants to be a doctor. Carlos is 12, plays soccer like his old man used to. Little Anna's 8, smarter than all of us combined." He pulled out his phone, showing pictures of children whose faces radiated joy and potential. "Maria gets straight A's, takes advanced classes. She's going to be something special, you know. Better life than this." Marcus felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Roberto spoke about his daughter's academic achievements with the same pride Marcus's father had displayed when Marcus graduated from Wharton. But Roberto was earning $24,000 annually, while Marcus owned a $300 million empire. "She sounds brilliant," Marcus said sincerely. "She is, but college costs money, and this job—" Roberto gestured toward the restaurant. "It pays the bills, but college dreams require more than bill-paying money." The conversation was interrupted by Linda calling them back to work. As Marcus returned to the dish pit, he carried with him the image of Roberto's daughter, a 15-year-old with medical school aspirations whose father washed dishes to fund her dreams. The afternoon brought new revelations. Marcus observed interactions he had never witnessed during corporate visits. He saw servers arguing with cooks about order accuracy, heard managers threatening job security over minor infractions, and witnessed the constant stress that pervaded every conversation. Sarah Williams, a server in her early 20s, stopped by the dish pit around 3 p.m. when the lunch rush had subsided. "Hey Roberto, can you guys be extra careful with the wine glasses today?" Table 6 complained about water spots, and if we get another complaint, Linda says it's coming out of my tips. She looked exhausted despite the slow afternoon period. Her uniform was wrinkled, her hair escaping from its mandatory ponytail, and her smile seemed forced from hours of customer service performance. "Sarah, you okay?" Roberto asked with genuine concern. "Just tired. Been pulling double shifts this week because Jenny quit, and they haven't hired replacement servers yet. Last night I worked until midnight, back here at 6 this morning to open." Marcus did quick mental calculations. If Sarah was working 16-hour days multiple times per week, she was earning overtime pay that would significantly impact the location's labor costs. But corporate policy discouraged overtime by requiring managerial approval for any shifts exceeding 40 hours weekly. "Did management approve the overtime?" Marcus asked, curious about policy implementation at ground level. Sarah laughed bitterly. "Management doesn't approve overtime. They just schedule insufficient staff and expect us to cover the gaps on regular time or find new jobs. So we clock out after 8 hours and keep working off the books, because rent doesn't pay itself." Roberto nodded grimly. "Same in the kitchen. They cut hours but expect the same productivity. So we work unpaid time to keep up or get fired for falling behind." Marcus felt his understanding of Detroit's problems shifting fundamentally. The financial reports showed high labor costs, but now he realized employees were working unpaid hours to maintain operations. The turnover statistics reflected employee frustration with impossible expectations, rather than inherent laziness or incompetence. As closing time approached, Marcus helped Roberto break down the dishwashing station. His hands were raw, his clothes soaked with greasy water, and his body ached in ways he had never experienced. But his mind was racing with insights that no corporate report had ever provided. Walking to his cheap motel room, Marcus passed a bus stop where several restaurant employees waited for public transportation. Their conversations revealed layers of struggle invisible to corporate executives. Second jobs to supplement restaurant wages, educational aspirations delayed by financial necessity, family responsibilities that competed with work demands. In his motel room, Marcus sat on the edge of a bed that creaked with his weight, staring at his reflection in a cracked mirror. 8 hours of dishwashing had aged him in ways that years of executive stress never had. His hands bore the honest marks of physical labor, his posture reflected genuine fatigue, and his perspective on his business had been fundamentally altered. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Sterling understood what it meant to be dispensable, undervalued, and invisible. And tomorrow he would return to learn even deeper truths about the human cost of his corporate policies. Marcus's third day at Sterling Family Restaurant began at 5:30 a.m. with Roberto frantically calling him at the motel. "Michael, can you come in early? Tommy, the morning prep cook, his kid's in the hospital, emergency surgery. We're going to be slammed without him." Marcus had planned to spend the morning analyzing his observations, but Roberto's desperation was genuine. "Of course. Give me 20 minutes. Arriving at the restaurant, Marcus found the kitchen in controlled panic. Linda was simultaneously managing prep work, coordinating with suppliers, and training a new cook who had started the previous day. The stress was visible in everyone's movements, sharp, efficient, but tinged with anxiety. "Stone, I need you on prep duty before Dish Pit opens," Linda announced. "Can you cut vegetables?" Marcus had never cut vegetables professionally, but he nodded. Linda handed him a knife and positioned him next to Carmen Rodriguez, a prep cook in her 40s whose hands moved with machine-like precision as she diced onions. "Like this, mijo," Carmen demonstrated, her knife creating perfectly uniform pieces in rhythmic motions. "Keep your fingers curled, rock the blade, don't lift too high. You try." Marcus's first attempts were clumsy and slow. Carmen watched patiently, occasionally adjusting his grip or demonstrating technique again. She possessed the teaching skills of a master craftsperson, but her title and pay reflected society's devaluation of food service expertise. "You're getting it," she encouraged after an hour of practice. "This job, it's all about caring. People think anyone can cook, but doing it right, day after day, feeding hundreds of people, that takes skill and heart." As the morning progressed, Marcus observed dynamics that corporate training manuals never addressed. When the ice machine broke down, employees pooled personal money to buy bags of ice from a nearby gas station, ensuring customer service continued uninterrupted. When a single mother arrived late due to childcare issues, co-workers covered her responsibilities without complaint. When an elderly regular customer seemed confused about his order, Sarah spent extra time ensuring he felt comfortable and understood. These acts of mutual support and customer care occurred spontaneously, without management direction or corporate policy guidance. Marcus realized his employees possessed natural service instincts and team loyalty that his business model systematically undervalued. During the lunch rush, disaster struck. The main grill malfunctioned, producing uneven heat that burned some orders while leaving others undercooked. Chef Williams, the kitchen supervisor, tried desperately to manage orders using remaining equipment, but the backup couldn't handle full capacity. "We need to 86 the burgers until I can fix this," he announced, meaning they would stop serving their most popular menu items. Linda's face went pale. "Corporate's gonna kill us. Lunch rush with no burgers? Customer complaints will be through the roof." Marcus watched the staff respond to the crisis. Instead of panic or blame, they demonstrated remarkable problem-solving creativity. Carmen suggested featuring chicken and fish specials at discounted prices. Roberto volunteered to stay late without pay to deep clean equipment while repairs were made. Sarah prepared to handle angry customers with enhanced customer service and complimentary appetizers. But their solutions were constrained by corporate policies Marcus had implemented personally. They couldn't offer significant discounts without managerial approval that required calling corporate headquarters. They couldn't provide complimentary items beyond predetermined limits. They couldn't modify procedures without risking disciplinary action for policy violations. As frustrated customers complained about limited menu options and longer wait times, Marcus saw his employees absorbing abuse for problems beyond their control, while corporate policies prevented them from implementing solutions they knew would work. The breaking point came during a conversation he overheard between Sarah and Carmen during their brief afternoon break. "I can't keep doing this," Sarah said, her voice cracking with exhaustion. 16-hour days, angry customers, management that treats us like we're stupid, and I'm still barely making rent. My little brother's asking why I'm always working but never have money for anything fun." Carmen nodded sympathetically. "I've been here 6 years. Know what I've learned? We're invisible to them. Corporate sees labor costs, not people with families and dreams. Sometimes I think about just walking out," Sarah continued. "But then I think about Roberto's kids, about Mrs. Peterson who comes in every Tuesday and tells me about her grandchildren, about Tommy whose kid needs surgery. This place could be good if anyone upstairs actually cared about making it work." Marcus felt a profound shift occurring in his chest, a combination of shame, recognition, and something approaching grief. These weren't lazy employees making excuses for poor performance. These were skilled, caring people trapped in a system that extracted their labor while denying them dignity, opportunity, and adequate compensation. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Marcus volunteered to help with deep cleaning. The staff had developed an efficient routine. Roberto handled equipment maintenance, Carmen organized inventory, Sarah cleaned dining areas, and Linda managed administrative tasks. Working alongside them, Marcus experienced their camaraderie and professionalism in ways no corporate visit had ever revealed. They possessed institutional knowledge about customer preferences, operational efficiencies, and problem-solving strategies that could significantly improve the restaurant's performance if anyone in corporate leadership had bothered to ask their opinions. "Michael," Linda approached him around 11 p.m. as they finished cleaning. "You're working out better than most new hires. Roberto says you're learning fast. Carmen likes your attitude. If you stick around, there might be opportunities to move up. Maybe prep cook, then line cook." Marcus felt an unexpected surge of pride at earning their respect through honest work. But Linda's mention of advancement opportunities revealed another systemic problem. The career path she described would take years of dedicated service to reach wages that might approach $30,000 annually, still insufficient to support a family with dignity. "What about management training?" Marcus asked. "Do people from the kitchen ever become managers?" Linda's expression darkened. "Corporate policy requires management candidates to have college degrees or previous supervisory experience. Most of us here have high school diplomas and restaurant experience. They bring in college graduates who've never worked a fryer and expect us to train them to manage us." The irony was overwhelming. Marcus was surrounded by people with deep operational expertise, proven leadership skills, and genuine investment in the restaurant's success. But corporate policies he had created prevented them from advancing into positions where they could implement their knowledge. Walking back to his motel, Marcus passed a 24-hour diner where several restaurant employees had gathered after their shifts. Through the window, he saw Roberto helping his teenage daughter with homework while drinking coffee he probably couldn't afford. Carmen was texting with someone, likely coordinating family responsibilities around her work schedule. Sarah was counting tips, probably calculating whether she could afford groceries and rent. In his motel room, Marcus sat at a small desk and began writing notes about everything he had observed. But the words felt inadequate to capture the human complexity he had discovered. These weren't statistics or labor costs. They were people whose talents were being systematically wasted, whose potential was constrained by policies designed to maximize short-term profits without considering long-term human investment. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Sir, board meeting Thursday to discuss Q3 performance. Detroit closure still on agenda?" Marcus stared at the message for several minutes. 3 days ago, he would have confirmed the closure without hesitation. But now he understood that closing Detroit wouldn't solve the underlying problems. It would simply transfer them to another location while destroying the livelihoods of people who had earned his respect through their dedication and skill. For the first time in his business career, Marcus Sterling faced a decision that couldn't be resolved through financial analysis or strategic planning. He was confronting the fundamental question of what kind of leader and what kind of human being he wanted to be. Tomorrow would be his final day undercover, and somehow he needed to find a way to honor what he had learned without destroying the trust he had built with people who still didn't know they were teaching the owner of their company the most important lessons of his life. Marcus's final day began with an emergency that would test everything he had learned. At 4:30 a.m., his motel phone rang with Linda's panicked voice. "Michael, I need everyone who can possibly come in. We've got a bus full of seniors stopping for breakfast, 43 people, arriving at 7. Corporate sprung this on us last night, and we're already short-staffed." Arriving at the restaurant, Marcus found organized chaos. The night cleaning crew had stayed late to prepare extra seating. Roberto had called in his brother-in-law to help with prep work, and Carmen was coordinating a breakfast menu expansion using ingredients from their regular dinner supplies. "This is insane," Sarah muttered while setting up additional tables. "Corporate accepts these group bookings for bonus revenue but never considers if we have the staff to handle them properly." Marcus watched his employees rise to meet an impossible challenge with creativity and teamwork that no corporate training program had taught them. They weren't just fulfilling job requirements. They were protecting each other's livelihoods by ensuring the restaurant's reputation remained intact despite management failures. The bus arrived precisely at 7, disgorging 43 elderly travelers who had been driving since 4 a.m. and desperately needed food, coffee, and restroom facilities. Marcus had imagined this scenario from a corporate perspective: increased revenue, higher customer volume, efficient service delivery. The ground-level reality was far more complex. Roberto's dishwashing station became the bottleneck everyone had predicted. With normal breakfast service plus 43 additional meals, dirty dishes accumulated faster than the machine could process them. Marcus found himself working with systematic desperation, loading and unloading cycles while Roberto managed prep work that couldn't wait for normal staffing. "I've got clean plates coming out," Marcus called to the kitchen, proud that he could contribute meaningfully to the team's success. But around 8:30, disaster struck again. Mrs. Eleanor Chen, an 82-year-old passenger, slipped in the restroom and fell. She wasn't seriously injured, but she was shaken, embarrassed, and worried about rejoining her tour group. Sarah found her sitting in the restroom, crying softly from frustration more than pain. "Mrs. Chen, are you hurt? Should we call a doctor?" Sarah knelt beside her with genuine concern. "I'm fine, dear, just clumsy, but my husband will worry, and the bus driver says we need to leave soon, and I haven't even ordered my breakfast." Corporate policy for customer injuries required immediate incident reports, managerial notification, and documentation that prioritized legal liability over customer care. But Sarah ignored policy and focused on human need. "Don't worry about the bus. Let me help you to a quiet table, bring you some coffee and our best breakfast, and you take all the time you need. I'll explain to your husband and the driver." Marcus watched Sarah spend 20 minutes with Mrs. Chen, treating her not as a liability risk, but as someone's grandmother who deserved dignity and kindness. She brought her coffee, took her breakfast order personally, and sat with her until she felt steady enough to rejoin her group. The act of compassion created operational inefficiency. Sarah couldn't serve other tables as quickly, orders backed up, and the kitchen felt additional pressure. But it also demonstrated the human values that made Sterling Family Restaurant worth preserving and improving. When the bus finally departed at 10:15, every passenger had been fed, no one had been rushed, and Mrs. Chen hugged Sarah before leaving. "That girl has a gift," said Mrs. Patterson, a regular customer who had witnessed the morning's events. "You don't see service like that anymore. She made that lady feel like family." Linda overheard and nodded with exhausted pride. "Sarah's special. They all are. This crew would do anything for each other and for our customers." As the post-breakfast cleanup began, Marcus realized his undercover experience was ending, but his real education was just beginning. He had discovered a workforce of exceptional people constrained by systems that prevented them from reaching their potential. Around 2 p.m., during the quiet period between lunch and dinner rushes, Marcus made his decision. He asked Linda if he could speak with the entire day shift staff. "I've got something important to tell you all," he announced as Roberto, Carmen, Sarah, and Linda gathered in the break room. Taking a deep breath, Marcus began his revelation. "My name isn't Michael Stone. I'm Marcus Sterling, owner of this restaurant and 46 others." The silence was deafening. Sarah's face went pale, Roberto's eyes widened in confusion, and Linda's expression shifted through shock, anger, and betrayal in rapid succession. "You've been spying on us?" Linda's voice was sharp with accusation. "Initially, yes," Marcus admitted. "I came here because this location was failing financially, and I wanted to understand why before deciding whether to close it. But what I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about business and about people." Carmen stood up abruptly. "So now you've seen how the poor people live, you can go back to your mansion and feel good about yourself?" "Carmen, please, let me finish." Marcus's voice carried the humility he had learned over 4 days of honest labor. "I came here thinking the problem was lazy employees and bad management. Instead, I found the most dedicated, skilled, caring people I've ever worked with, trapped in a system that wastes their talents and undervalues their contributions." He pulled out his phone and showed them pictures he had taken. Roberto helping his daughter with homework, Sarah comforting Mrs. Chen, Carmen training him with patient expertise, Linda coordinating crisis response with natural leadership. "Roberto, your daughter wants to be a doctor, but you're earning $24,000 a year despite being an expert at your job. Sarah, you're providing customer service that would make 5-star restaurants envious, but you can't afford to take a sick day. Carmen, you have culinary skills that could run any kitchen, but corporate policy says you can't advance without a college degree you can't afford to pursue." Tears formed in Sarah's eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I was wrong about everything. This restaurant isn't failing because of you. It's failing because of policies I created that prevent you from succeeding. And I want to change that, starting right now." Marcus outlined his immediate plans. Roberto would be promoted to kitchen supervisor with a salary of $45,000 and company-funded benefits that would include a college fund for his daughter. Carmen would become head chef with authority to modify menus and train staff, earning $50,000 annually. Sarah would be promoted to assistant manager with a path to full management and business education support. Linda would become general manager with authority to make operational decisions without corporate approval. But more importantly, Marcus continued, "I want to restructure how we operate. No more unpaid overtime. If you work, you get paid properly. No more arbitrary policies that prevent good ideas from being implemented. No more treating employees like replaceable parts instead of valuable team members." Roberto was the first to speak. "Why should we trust you? You lied to us for 4 days." "Because," Marcus replied, "you taught me more about running a restaurant in 4 days than I learned in 12 years of corporate meetings. And because I'm not asking you to trust me, I'm asking you to help me prove that a business can be successful while treating people with dignity and respect." The conversation that followed lasted 2 hours. Marcus answered every question about his motives, his plans, and his understanding of the changes needed. Gradually, skepticism gave way to cautious optimism as his employees realized he had genuinely absorbed their lessons about collaboration, respect, and human potential. 6 months later, the Detroit Sterling family restaurant had become the most profitable location in the company's history. Employee turnover dropped to 12%, customer satisfaction scores reached record highs, and the innovations developed by the Detroit team were being implemented across all locations. Roberto's daughter Maria received a full scholarship to Wayne State University's pre-med program, funded by a Sterling Enterprises educational foundation Marcus created. Carmen's menu modifications increased food costs by 8%, but boosted customer satisfaction and repeat business by 37%. Sarah's management training program became a model for promoting internal talent, rather than hiring external managers. But the most significant change was in Marcus himself. He moved his primary office from the 42nd floor to ground-level locations, spending time each week working alongside employees across all positions. He discovered that the view from the dish pit provided insights no boardroom perspective could match. Speaking at the annual Sterling Enterprises Leadership Conference, Marcus shared his transformation. "I spent 12 years thinking I understood my business because I understood spreadsheets and profit margins. But businesses aren't built on numbers. They're built on people. And when you invest in people with the same intensity you invest in equipment and marketing, the numbers take care of themselves." The Undercover experience had taught Marcus that true leadership meant creating environments where everyone's potential could flourish, where dignity was as important as efficiency, and where success was measured not just by profits, but by the lives transformed through meaningful work and mutual respect. As he looked out from his new ground floor office, watching Roberto train a new employee with the same patience he had shown Marcus, he understood that sometimes the greatest revelations come not from climbing higher, but from learning to see clearly from where you stand. If this story of transformation and human potential resonated with you, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that reveal the extraordinary in ordinary lives. Hit that notification bell to never miss the powerful moments when people discover their true worth and create lasting change. Your support helps us share more stories that prove everyone deserves dignity, opportunity, and respect. Subscribe now, and let's explore together how small changes in perspective can create profound transformations in our world.